Hello, everyone. We're going to be doing what's called, well, it doesn't really have a name other than we're going to have some objects that are reactive to raycasting. So, raycasting, as we know it, is us casting a ray from some origin point. And this is way too bright for me. Oh, here we go. Okay. So, us casting like an array, right, from a specific origin point and just hitting a specific object in space. So we could think, of ourselves as a player here, and we're just like, extending array, and we hit that spot right. So when it comes to actually hitting, a non-static entity, like let's say, for example, this is some entity, right? So this is the entity, I know. Pretty good drawing. But anyways, so we cast a ray from here and we hit this entity, right? So what we're supposed to do here is to have um actually let me just get rid of this here. Excuse me. Okay. Excuse me. All right. So when we do hit that entity, that entity should, fall over, it should, react in some way. Maybe if it's hit, then some of its health goes down, or maybe when it's hit, it just, flat out just dies or something. So what we want to do is to actually kind of map that out. So in this video, we're gonna take this raycast hit, this projectile, and try to actually implement a type of behavior for, this external object other than the player itself. It could be called an AI, So for example, this AI entity, right? And once it is hit, it reacts. And to implement this, what we could do is first do a game object here. So this game object, it's gonna be called hit object. So hit object here is just us representing the position in which we were able. Actually, hold on. So we know that the ray, right? Like let's say it hits that entity right here. And let's say that the coordinate space for that entity is 1, 1, 0. And so we know hit point is gonna have 1, 1, 0. But we want hit object to be uh, we want it to be expressed like this. So the reason why we want it to be expressed like this is because uh, hit object is actually going to be initialized the object in which it's hit at. So if I'm assuming, the ray goes this way, right? Then it's going to be in the range of where this entity is. So it's going to be, maybe it's not 110, but it might be the position or just whatever encompasses the entity and its like area. That's where this hit object is going to be initialized to. So then we're going to introduce uh, a user-defined class. Well, it's just going to be called entity, and this is just to represent, this guy here in the Paint software. So what we want to do first, though, is right. Just make this entity class. We can make a folder within Unity, call it AI behaviors. I just call it whatever. So we're gonna have a reference to entity. We're gonna make an instance of it, and we're gonna call this entity. Um, we'll just call it, John or something. So John, good old John, classic placeholder name, is gonna be used to see whether we actually hit John. So a way to check that we did actually hit John is to see. Um, so the way we do it is we get the components and we see for the entity, right? So this is to check whether we did hit entity John. So hit object, right? It's either gonna be around John's, area, or it's just gonna be somewhere other. It's gonna be over here, over there, wherever, right? It has to be within this range of John's range. So we just get the component if John was hit, and we're gonna do now something else here. So we're gonna say if John does not equal null. So why the null? So the null is supposed to represent um, anything outside or anything that's not John, whether that be just over here, over there, wherever it might be. But if it does equal John, wherever it hit John, then we're gonna do this John, and we're gonna call this react hit method, or got hit, or whatever method you want to represent uh, for the idea of John getting hit. So I'm just gonna say react hit, and it doesn't need any parameters because it's just gonna reference the object itself. But we're gonna do a coroutine here, and for this coroutine, we're gonna make another method called got hit or something. So for got hit here, we know that John got hit, right? So we want to reference John actually getting hit. So first things first, let's actually just do this here. Okie dokie. So a way we could do that is, sorry. So since this is a coroutine, I do need this I enumerator, and let's say I got hit. Not code, return path. Okay, sorry about that. So private I enumerator, and it's gonna reference the object itself. So it's gonna say this game object. Actually, let me review my notes. Hold on. Yeah. So after reviewing my notes, because John here, right? Once John does get hit, we're just gonna say John just dies or something. So John's just gonna be, oh my goodness. So John is just gonna be on the floor, right? John's just dead. So John, yep, John's a little. So John's just on the ground now. So now that John's on the ground, we actually want to represent that through like a little animation here. So we want to tilt John in a direction. So we're just going to say, this, and we're going to say transform, and I'm just going to say rotate. So we want a type of vertical tilting to happen. So what we're going to actually vertical, horizontal. Yeah, we want a vertical tilting. So we're going to pass down an X rotational value. So we'll say, since John's going in the ground, it's -75. Then for both of these right here, we could just have this both initialized to 0 because we're just enabling rotation. So, and John can just go from vertical to this direction here. Then after doing that, right, John's in the ground, but we don't want him to stay there for permanently, right? So return new. Wait seconds. and we're just gonna say 1. And after, actually, like 2 seconds, that'd probably be way better. Okay, so destroy, and we're gonna say this game, oh my gosh, game object. So now this entity script here, it's going to be applied to John, right? So some stuff is going to compile. This might take a while. I'm just going to pause until we come back. Oh, I actually forgot one more thing here. So we're just going to say here, since we're doing an if statement, I'm just going to put this coroutine in here. So this is just for the sphere indication. Sorry about that. So I'm going to compile this again. Okay. So now that we have, so we just attach this entity script onto this guy over here. Oh my gosh. Let me actually, I know it's called cube. It should probably be named something other than cube. Let's just say enemy. Enemy. So we got enemy, right? So now you have enemy, and we're gonna have the entity script onto enemy. So I already applied it here. You just drag it and just put it on enemy. And player should be modified, I think. So let me actually run this here, see if it actually goes well. So let's see here. So we're moving, then boom. Yep. Yep. Very, very climactic. I know. It's not the most flashy or visual representation, but it's an idea. And it's an idea that should be started with. So this is the implementation for having uh, an object react to another object making contact with it, which is array. So we just pass down the array's coordinates. Or let me actually just get the code here. So what we're doing here, right? Game object, hit object. So hit transform game object. What we're doing here is extracting the coordinates in which hit had actually was casted to. If it hit John, right? So starts from there, then it goes to there, ends there, right? It ends with John. So we extracted the coordinates and we check if entity John to see whether it's accessible. It should be accessible, not null if John was most definitely hit. Otherwise, you just get a sphere indicator. Then for the react to hit, we're just going to do coroutine, right? Where John got hit. Then we just reference the object itself and we just rotate it to make it seem like, they actually got hit. Then wait for 2 seconds and they just despawn. So this is the implementation. It's a little low level, but it's just for self-reference. Okay, goodbye.